A massive alien fleet is dispatched to Earth with one purpose: to destroy humanity once and for all. However, what follows shatters the expectations of the Galactic Empire. Earth's defenses, unknown to the galaxy, rewrite history in mere minutes. The Galactic Council's laughter echoed through the chamber. It was a sound full of arrogance, full of contempt. The Berelos councillor leaned back in his chair, his many limbs sprawled in a display of dominance. "We've waited too long to make this right," he said, eyes glinting with disdain. "Earth has survived for too long. They are nothing more than an insect scurrying underfoot. Time to crush them once and for all." A holographic projection shimmered. In the center of the room, displaying Earth's frail defenses, the small, battered ships in their fleet were laughable in the face of the Empire's overwhelming strength. The Vraxar councillor, his tentacles twitching, spoke with venom. "They'll never see us coming. Their pulse cannon is a myth. Their technology is outdated. Their tactics primitive. This will be over before they even know what hit them." "You're right," the Berelos councillor agreed. "Our forces are unstoppable. Earth will finally be silenced." The command to launch the fleet was given, and with it, the galaxy held its breath, as the largest invasion force the Empire had ever assembled set its sights on Earth. Meanwhile, on Earth's flagship, Captain Jake Hall was calm, but his mind raced. The warning signs were everywhere. Their defenses had been updated, but the threat from the alien fleet was immense. This time, humanity was facing the full wrath of the Galactic Empire. But Earth had something the aliens hadn't counted on, a determination that burned hotter than any weapon. "Captain, the enemy fleet is on course," Lieutenant Sanya reported, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "They're closing in on Earth. Estimated time of impact, 15 minutes. Hall stood still, gazing out into the stars, deep in thought. "They think it's mercy. It's not." He turned to face his crew. "Prepare the pulse cannon. We won't back down. The alien fleet, vast and powerful, cut through space like a storm. Ships of unimaginable size, armed with weapons designed to decimate entire planets, moved in perfect formation. The command ship, the heart of their force, led the charge. Its weapons hummed with raw energy, its hull shimmering under the lights of distant stars. The Vraxar councillor watched as the fleet advanced, his heart pounding with anticipation. "This is it. We show them the true power of the Galactic Empire." Back on Earth's flagship, Hall looked at the data flowing across the console. The enemy was close. The sensors indicated massive energy readings, alien weaponry preparing to fire. "Stand by," he commanded. His crew sprang into action, adjusting targeting systems and reinforcing shields. Earth's best chance was to take down the alien. "Command ship, and fast." "Captain," Sanya said, a touch of fear creeping into her voice, "their weapons are charging. We don't have much time." Hall's expression was unreadable. "We fire first." The first strike came without warning. The alien fleet unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, powerful enough to obliterate a small moon. The shockwaves reverberated across the command deck of Earth's flagship, causing the ship to shudder. Alarms blared, and sparks flew from several consoles. Earth's shields flared with a violent burst of light, holding steady, but the ship took damage. "Shields are holding at 72%, Sanya reported. "We've absorbed the brunt of their fire. We're still intact." Hall's hand tightened around the command chair. "Fire the pulse cannon." A bright beam of energy shot from Earth's flagship, a concentrated blast that tore through space with a blinding flash. The pulse cannon slammed into the lead alien ship, ripping it apart in an instant. The explosion was deafening, a wave of destruction that rippled through the enemy fleet. The alien ships closest to the impact were blown into pieces, their wreckage scattered like debris in the void. The Berelos councillor's face drained of color as he stared at the destruction on his screen. What is that? How? They've done it, the Vraxar councillor hissed, unable to comprehend the situation. Their weapon is far more powerful than anticipated. Target the command ship, Hall ordered, his voice steady. We're going to end this now. The pulse cannon powered up again, but the alien fleet had already begun to react. Ships scattered, desperately trying to form defensive patterns, but their tactics were disorganized. The unexpected destruction of their command ship sent shockwaves through the fleet's coordination. On Earth's flagship, the crew moved in perfect synchronization, weapons firing, engines pushing the ship into a combat position that the enemy couldn't counter. A second blast from the pulse cannon hit the heart of the alien fleet, sending another ship into a cataclysmic explosion. Panic began to spread through the remaining forces. Back in the council chamber, the alien leaders were no longer certain of victory. They had calculated every scenario, but this was something they hadn't prepared for. The Berelos counselor slammed his fist onto the table. "This is impossible! We've underestimated them! We need to regroup!" "No!" the Vraxa counselor interrupted, his voice filled with venom and fear. "We cannot retreat. We will destroy them, or we will die trying." But it was too late. As the alien fleet attempted to regroup, their remaining ships were systematically wiped out by Earth's relentless assault. The alien war machine, once the pinnacle of galactic power, had been crushed under the sheer force of humanity's resolve. On Earth's flagship, Hall stood at the command center, watching as the last of the alien ships disintegrated. There was no triumph in his heart, only a cold resolve. They had shown the galaxy that Earth was not to be underestimated. But the war was far from over. "They thought it was mercy," Hall muttered to himself. It wasn't. The silence in the council chamber was deafening. What was once filled with the sound of commanding voices, calculating decisions, and prideful arrogance was now overtaken by tension, disbelief, and the acrid stench of humiliation. The Berelos counselor sat frozen, his hands trembling as he looked at the shattered remnants of their fleet on the holographic display. The once proud armada was gone, reduced to debris. Earth had struck with devastating precision. The Empire was staggered. "This isn't possible," the Berelos counselor whispered, his voice cracking. We were supposed to crush them. This was supposed to be their end." Beside him, the Vraxa counselor slammed his fist on the table, his tentacles twitching with a mix of anger and disbelief. "They mocked us, and now we've lost everything. What did we miss?" His voice was a hiss, sharp with desperation. A murmur of panic spread among the counselors as they looked at the data, the numbers, and the wreckage. The fleet had been utterly decimated in a matter of minutes. They had sent everything they had, and Earth had destroyed it all. Humanity had managed to survive the initial wave, and now the unthinkable had happened. They had struck back. "We underestimated them," the Berelos counselor said, his voice filled with a mix of disgust and dread. "They're not just a nuisance. They're something we haven't seen before, and now they've proved it." "Enough," the Vraxa counselor barked, his anger now boiling over. "We can't sit here and wallow in failure. We rebuild. We get back to the fight. We show Earth that this was just a fluke, a momentary misstep. We'll make them regret ever defying us." But his words didn't carry the usual certainty. The Berelos counselor stood and walked to the viewport, his eyes scanning the stars, filled with the weight of an empire on the brink of collapse. "How many more times can we afford to underestimate them?" The Vraxa counselor, despite his bravado, felt the deep sting of fear. "We'll rebuild," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "We have the resources. We have the will. This ends now." Back aboard Earth's flagship, Captain Jake Hall stood at the helm, staring at the massive screen that displayed the remnants of the battle. The alien fleet had been destroyed, but the fight was far from over. His face was grim, his eyes narrowed in thought. The victory felt hollow. Earth had won, but now they were marked by the Empire, and the cost of survival was only beginning to show. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the Council," Lieutenant Sanya said, her voice calm but carrying the weight of what they all knew was coming. Hall exhaled slowly, turning to face her. "Patch it through." The screen flickered, and the image of the Berylos counselor appeared. His face was ashen, but the contempt in his eyes hadn't diminished. He looked at Earth's flagship as if it were a bug to be squashed. "You think you've won, human?" The Berylos counselor sneered. "This is far from over. The Galactic Empire does not take defeat lightly. You may have destroyed our fleet, but you've only delayed the inevitable. We will rebuild, we will return, and we will crush you." Hall stood still, his voice cold and unwavering. "We're still standing, and we'll be ready for you. Earth isn't a planet you can just walk all over. You'll learn that soon enough." The Berylos counselor's eyes narrowed. "You think you've proven something? You think you've earned a place among the stars? You're nothing more than a temporary annoyance. We will wipe you out. You will be nothing." The screen went black, and Hall stood silently, letting the weight of the words settle in. The Council's resolve had only hardened. This wasn't over. The message had been clear. Earth had challenged the Galactic Empire, and they weren't about to forget it. "Captain, they're already rebuilding," Sanya said, her voice full of urgency. "The Council has already mobilized. Their reinforcements are on the way." Hall's mind raced. They hadn't expected this response, this level of tenacity. The Empire wasn't just angry. They were scared. Scared of what humanity had done. Scared of what Earth had become. And that fear would drive them to come back even harder. "We need to be ready for everything," Hall said, his voice steady but filled with determination. "They've shown us their power, and we've shown them ours. Now it's time to show them that we won't back down." The alien fleet was already beginning to regroup. The lost ships were being rebuilt. New technology was being rushed to the front lines, and reinforcements were being called from every corner of the galaxy. The Berylos and Vraxa counselors knew that the next attack would be their final chance. To crush Earth, they would throw everything they had into this assault. "Prepare everything we have," the Berylos counselor commanded, his voice filled with cold resolve. "We strike at the heart of Earth. No more delays. We bring the galaxy to its knees." On Earth's flagship, Hall and his crew began their preparations for the next wave. The last few weeks had been filled with constant readiness drills, tactical simulations and weapons checks. They knew the next fight would be harder, but they were ready. Earth wasn't going to bend. Earth was going to fight. "They think we're done," Hall said to Sanya, his voice filled with quiet confidence. "But we're just getting started." Sanya nodded. "They've made a mistake, and now we're going to make sure they never forget it." The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity had sent a message to the galaxy, and the Empire was coming to finish what they had started. The question was, would Earth be ready for the storm that was about to descend upon them? Hall turned to his crew, his eyes burning with resolve. "We're not just defending our planet. We're defending our place in this galaxy, and we will not be erased." The hum of Earth's flagship reverberated throughout the command deck. Captain Jake Hall stood by the viewport, staring into the vastness of space. The silence around him was a heavy one, filled with the weight of anticipation. They had won the last battle, but that had only bought them time. Time for what? A war they hadn't asked for, a challenge they hadn't been prepared for, and now the alien empire was coming back. "Captain," Lieutenant Sanya's voice broke, the stillness pulling Hall back to the present. She stood at the console, her eyes scanning the incoming data, her expression tense. "Their reinforcements are arriving. A fleet of this size, it's more than just a counterattack, it's an all-out offensive." Hall nodded, his face hardening. The Berylos and Vraxa counselors weren't bluffing. They weren't merely sending a response. They were coming to finish Earth off once and for all. and their reinforcements had already reached the front lines, bringing with them the full fury of the Galactic Empire. "How long?" Hall asked, his voice steady, though his mind raced. "Estimated time of arrival." Sanya paused, reading the latest coordinates. 2 days. Hall felt a pit in his stomach. 2 days. It wasn't long enough. Not nearly enough to prepare for a force that powerful. But they would have to make do. Earth's military might was nothing compared to the Empire's, but humanity had something that no other species in the galaxy seemed to understand. Resolve. The same resolve that had won them the last battle. "Captain," Sanya continued, "we've increased production of the pulse cannon. It's ready, but it will take all we've got to even make a dent in their fleet. They'll be here before we can build up enough strength." "We don't need to outnumber them," Hall said, his voice sharp with confidence. "We need to make every shot count. This is our home. This is our survival. We fight for Earth." Across the galaxy, the alien fleet was already underway. Their ships, some heavily repaired from the last battle, were now bolstered with reinforcements. The Galactic Empire's might was at full capacity, and they were ready for one final strike. The Berylos Counselor, seated in his private war room, stared at the holographic map of the galaxy. The Empire's ships stretched across the cosmos, like a dark, suffocating cloud. Their destination, Earth. "They think they've won," the Berylos Counselor said, his voice dripping with venom. "But this time we'll show them that the Empire is not so easily defeated. This is where it ends. Earth will be no more." Beside him, the Varaxa Counselor watched the projection of Earth's flagship. "They've tasted power, but they won't survive the second wave. We'll bring every weapon to bear. This is no longer just about crushing them. This is about reminding the galaxy who controls the stars." On Earth's flagship, Hall gathered his senior officers for the final briefing before the storm hit. His eyes scanned the room, meeting each officer's gaze, trying to gauge their resolve. They had fought before, but this would be different. The stakes were higher. The risk was higher. "We have 2 days, Hall said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "The Empire is coming back. They've got reinforcements. They'll be here in force, and this time we can't rely on just our pulse cannon. We need a full defense strategy, air, ground, and space. Every ship, every piece of tech, every human. We fight as one." "We're ready, Captain," said Lieutenant Sanya, her voice firm. "Our defenses have been fortified. We've improved the pulse cannon, and we've got new countermeasures against their weapons." "And if it's not enough?" Hall asked, his eyes never leaving hers. "We fight anyway," Sanya replied, her voice unwavering. "We make sure the galaxy knows. We're not going down without a fight." The alien fleet's reinforcements entered the system, massive ships gliding through the dark expanse, their hulls glinting like predator eyes in the night. The Berylos and Vraxa counselors stood side by side, overseeing the operation from their war room. The fleet had arrived in full force, a wall of death ready to engulf Earth. "We hit them hard, we hit them fast," the Vraxa counselor said. "Earth won't know what hit them." The Berylos counselor nodded. "This time, we'll leave nothing behind. We wipe them out completely. The galaxy will see that defiance comes at a cost." Back on Earth's flagship, Hall turned to his crew, his face hard as stone. "Prepare for the worst," he said, his voice carrying the weight of everything that was at stake. "But never forget, this is our fight. This is our survival." "We'll be ready, Captain," Sanya said, her eyes burning with the same fire that Hall saw in himself. "Earth will not fall today." Hall looked out at the stars once more. They were peaceful now, but he knew what was coming. The Empire was coming, and they would stop at nothing to ensure that humanity would be crushed underfoot. But Hall had seen what humans could do when pushed to the edge, when survival was all that mattered, and Earth wasn't about to let its story end like this. "We fight," Hall said, his voice low, almost to himself, "and we make sure the galaxy knows we're still here." As the alien fleet drew closer, Hall and his crew braced for the storm that was about to hit. They had 2 days to prepare, but they knew that no matter how much they fortified Earth, no matter how much they tried to outsmart the Empire, the real battle was one of will. Earth would stand, not because it had the power to match the Empire, but because it had the spirit to fight. And that spirit, Hall knew, would change the galaxy forever. The final hours before the battle were upon them. Earth's flagship, now, fully armed and fortified, stood ready against the massive alien fleet that loomed just outside their atmosphere. Every crew member was at their station, working with precision, knowing that this was their last stand. Captain Jake Hall stood at the helm, his eyes scanning the vast expanse of space where the alien ships approached, their dark silhouettes cutting across the stars. The hum of the ship's systems was the only sound, a reminder of the quiet before the storm. "We've been preparing for this moment for 2 days," Hall said, his voice steady, despite the rising tension. "The fleet is on its way. They're coming for us, but we've already shown them what we're capable of. This is our fight." Lieutenant Sanya stepped forward, her face grim but resolute. "We've improved the pulse cannon, Captain. We've reinforced the shields. The fleet might be bigger, but we're not going to make it easy for them." Hall nodded, his eyes never leaving the display screen. "Good. Make sure everything is ready. When they come, we give them everything we've got." Meanwhile, the alien fleet was closing in. Their massive warships, each a force of destruction in its own right, hovered ominously just beyond Earth's reach. The Berylos and Vraxar counselors, the faces of their empire's wrath, watched their final assault unfold. "This is the end," the Vraxar counselor said, his voice filled with certainty. "The humans think they've won, but they are just delaying the inevitable. This time we end this once and for all. We will crush them," the Berylos counselor said, his tone cold with determination. "Earth's defiance ends today." Back on Earth's flagship, Hall felt a ripple of energy through the ship as they entered the battle phase. His crew moved with precision, knowing that each decision could be the difference between survival and annihilation. "We're in range," Sanya reported, her fingers flying across the console. "The first wave is about to arrive." Hall's voice was calm, but his heart raced with anticipation. "Fire!" The pulse cannon surged to life, sending a blinding beam toward the first alien ship. It hit its target dead on, the energy tearing through its shields and vaporizing its hull. In a flash of light, the explosion sent shockwaves through the enemy fleet, but it was only the beginning. The alien ships retaliated, their weapons launching fiery beams toward Earth's flagship. The ship rocked as the shields absorbed the impact, but the power of the enemy's strike was undeniable. "We've lost forward shields by 30%. Sanya called out, her voice tight with urgency. "Hold them off," Hall commanded. "We have to keep pushing. They think they can crush us, but they're wrong." The battle raged on. Earth's fleet, though smaller, was relentless. The pulse cannon continued its deadly work, cutting down alien ships one by one, but the enemy was overwhelming. Their numbers, their firepower, each moment felt like the last. But Hall refused to let fear take hold. As the alien fleet regrouped, Hall knew the end was near. The final showdown was coming. They had proven Earth's might, but would it be enough to ensure humanity's survival? "We fight for Earth," Hall said, his eyes fixed on the enemy. "We fight for every person, every family. We fight to make sure the galaxy knows what happens when you challenge humanity." The battle wasn't over, but Earth had delivered a message, and no matter what came next, the galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again.